Okay, we're ready to get going on the committee of the whole. Ready? Okay, good evening. The hour being 7:12 PM on Monday, May 22nd, 2023. I'd like to call to order the Village of Brookfield Committee of the Whole meeting. Bridget, can we have a roll call for the committee meeting, please?
Trustee Ketchmark?
Here.
Trustee Cote?
Here.
Trustee Hendricks?
Here.
Trustee Niramatsu?
Here.
Trustee Gilhuli?
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Here.
And President Garvey.
Here. Thank you, Bridget. The first item we have is a discussion of the business use smoke and vape shop and potential public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission related to a zoning text amendment. We have a detailed memo from staff on this, but I know Kate Portillo, our village planner, wants to make a presentation here tonight. So Kate, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Garvey and honorable commissioners, honorable trustees. This is a brief presentation. Essentially, I am here before you looking for direction from the village board and to allow preliminary discussion as needed to direct staff as to next steps that may be requested. And so, just a little background, in the zoning ordinance, there are use categories, as I'm sure trustees are aware, and so a smoke and vape shop falls under the category non-durable goods, and that is a by right use in the zoning districts listed above. It is also allowed in stationary district 2 and 4 under the context of it may only have a maximum floor area of 3,500 square feet, which is probably more than sufficient for our stationary zoning districts. And finally, non-durable goods business use is a special use in the I-1 zoning district. So in the packet, I utilized the zoning map and tweaked it just a little bit. I don't have the pointer, but you can see there are some blackout areas there. And this, oh, yes, I do. Thank you so much, Tim. So that's the C4 zoning district, I'm sorry, the C3 zoning district. There's a little corner there where that's also allowed. The Broadway Business District, the Grand Boulevard Business District, as well as the side of the tracks there with Irish Times, Phil's, and then Ogden Avenue, as well as the small mixed-use commercial district by the Zoo Metro stop. So currently, a potential new business would only need to submit a business license application, pass their inspections, and all of that being said, they are allowed to operate for business. If they put up signage, it does need to comply with our sign code, and regulation outside of that would be largely at a state and federal level. So you have been provided in the packet the 4 locations where we currently have standalone businesses. Of course, some of these legal products are sold at other retail establishments such as gas stations. And I've broken down which business districts you will find these standalone businesses. The 2 most recent additions to the business scene here in Brookfield would be in the C1 zoning district along Ogden Avenue. So the potential process before you would be policy change research and recommendation from staff, and then this would more likely than not involve text amendments going before the Planning and Zoning Commission. In a nutshell, the possible way that the village could look to further regulate this type of use would be through zoning, possibly creating a breakout category for this type of business, and then possibly further elaborating in the code where that business use might be allowed and if a special use permit would be required. And as that relates to existing businesses, that would allow existing businesses to remain as legal nonconforming.
Thank you, Kate. Obviously, this is a topic, I mean, these businesses have become more prevalent and also, kind of part of the social conversation about what's going on. The definition of non-durable goods, it's, that's probably been in our zoning code for quite a long time, and I don't know if it was contemplated that, would include these types of shops, but because it doesn't fit anywhere else, it's basically got to fit under this. When you talk about potential staff research, have we started to look or aware of what other towns have done or other examples? Have other towns run into similar issues where there was no specific regulations that you're aware of?
So that, we are looking to the board to direct us to do that further
Sure.
research. I know that the village attorney is also, we've had preliminary discussions that we would look into those matters and compile that data if directed by the
Sure.
board.
Questions, comments from the board?
I think it's a great idea.
So what we're looking for is there a consensus from the village board to have staff begin the research in terms of comparing, what we are lacking right now, what other communities might be doing, and then, if there is a need to propose a text amendment to go directly to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I don't know that, I guess I'm looking for direction from the board. If staff does their research and thinks there's gaps or potential gaps, do they have the authority to just go right to the Planning and Zoning Commission with the text amendment, or do you want to see staff come back and ask for that permission?
I'm okay with them going right to them. I do want them classified separately outside of the non-durable goods. When you do come up and start doing your research, one of the items that I did want to touch base on, I would like to have a limit on distance between. So right now, they could set up shop with 3 of them in one district, back to back to back. It's not the best business model, but it could happen. And I would like to have that included in the thought process on that.
Thank you, trustee Cote.
Yeah, I'm in support of some more research on this and seeing what other communities are doing and what that language looks like, especially ones with, our kind of smaller business districts like we have, or decentralized ones.
Thank you, trustee Kohui.
I think I'm reading, there's a consensus from the board to go ahead and have staff begin the process, and I haven't heard any objections. If they do feel the need to go directly to the Planning and Zoning Commission
That's fine.
with a proposed text amendment, obviously, we would be made aware of that and aware of the meeting, and through our liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission, trustee Hendricks, we'd be made aware of that. So just to maybe expedite the process instead of coming back looking for the authority if it becomes necessary. If the mechanism to make some changes is a text amendment, that has to go to Planning and Zoning with the village making the application, so.
In the meantime, during this process, though, somebody could open up a business right now. Okay.
That's correct within the regulations we have now, and as Kate indicated, there are some state and federal regulations on this right now, but that's why I think it's important that we give staff the direction and let them go ahead and do it and go ahead and proceed directly to Planning and Zoning Commission if necessary. Is that all, is that clear enough for you?
Yes, thank you so much.
And again, thank you for bringing this forward. This is one of those topics that, is kind of out there in the everyday consciousness, and we, these are things that we have to adapt our ordinances and processes for, so. Okay, moving on to the second item we have is a discussion of potential updates for light pole banners and a future policy. See you guys switching chairs. I see Cindy's going to take over this again. Thank you for the detailed summary memo, and I'll turn it over to Cindy to make the presentation to the board and the audience.
For the new trustees.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
I'm the economic development consultant for the village, and so I was tasked to do some research and try to wade through the issue and see if we could come up with some clarity and some direction that you could respond to. So tonight, we're basically focusing on the 3 business areas where street lamp banners are now positioned: Ogden Avenue, downtown, and 8 Corners. This is historically, for Brookfield, we have not had a banner policy. There has not been a strategic schedule for banners for each district. And it's been almost 5 years since this has come before all of you for discussion on what you would like to see it be and what it should be for the community. So that's why we're here tonight. We want to discuss, I'm going to be here to present the information as on the existing banners, recommend changes, and then direction, look for direction from all of you to answer some of our questions. The key questions we're going to be looking for from you tonight is whether we should extend this to community organizations, which I'll follow up and give you a little background on what this is referencing, how banners can be supported, branding, marketing, economic development efforts, or is it just a beautification effort? We're looking for some direction on that. And then also some banners, the concept of a more long-term banner as part of streetscapes, something that would be a little more expensive on the front end, but be more permanent and to have a greater impact on the community as part of kind of our streetscape, placemaking, and public art efforts. It's kind of hard to see here on this slide, but you do have it in your packet. What this did was look to compare by district what is currently happening in each one of these areas. Public Works is the department that installs them, forestry, and the biggest issue we have with these existing banners is that they are of different sizes. So we have some examples and conditions. So we have some examples, Vanna. Yeah. So for instance, the small ones are part of the downtown collection, and the one in the middle, which is, I believe, a chamber banner, that one is part of the Eight Corners banners, and then the two on each end are Ogden Avenue banners. And what we wanted you to see is the condition of these are pretty deteriorated. I mean, they just don't look good hanging there. In the case of the one in the middle, which is for the Eight Corners area, it had to be retrofitted to make it work with the new fixtures, and so you can see it doesn't hold up well. I think that is one of the older ones, and it's in your report as well, but it does, oh gosh, we don't need to lose you, but it does show that these bigger banners are really taking a beating, and they're more expensive because they have to have the wind socks put in them so that they actually don't get torn up.
Is there any idea how old that, like, middle banner is, or, I mean,
Actually, that one's only 6 years old,
okay.
5 or 6 years old. The Discover Brookfield's a little older, and the Brookfield, the bird is, the spring one is only 6 as well.
Okay.
Were those all produced with the same vendor? Or they,
I cannot answer that question if they were with the same vendor, I'm sorry. I'm happy to find out.
I don't believe so. I think in the 4 years I've been here, it's been like, it's like shooting butterflies or shooting hummingbirds. We just kind of go whatever we can find. As far as I know, I've never been led to believe that they're consistent with any manufacturer.
Okay. So, that's a great point. The problem we have is there's not a lot of consistency. So each district has different banners. Some of them are similar, some of them are not. None of them are interchangeable. Ogden Avenue can be adjusted slightly because the fixtures on the Ogden Avenue light poles have some flexibility. The problem is it's a safety issue. So you are on probably the busiest street. You have to have extra equipment out there for safety purposes. It's a higher bucket truck. There's a lot of complication that goes along with Ogden Avenue. Another is the quantity. So for instance, in the downtown district, you have 37 poles. They're double banners. So we don't have an example of what they are. It is in your report, but it's 2 side-by-side banners. It was 7 different designs, and we changed them out approximately 8 times a year. So you're talking about quite a bit of staff time. It takes 3 to 4 hours for each exchange. And so when you put it all together, about 32 hours of staff time goes into just that district's exchange of banners. Ogden Avenue has 45 poles. There's 4 different designs, obviously because of, the safety issues, but also only 4 times a year do they get exchanged out. And then Eight Corners has 19 double poles and 5 singles, and 4 different designs with changes up to 5 times a year. Now, in the past year or so, they haven't had banners because of construction and some other things going on. They do now. The spring banners are up, but as you'll see, they're faded, and they just don't have quite the impact that I think the village is looking for. I think one of the other pieces to also point out is that because there's not a lot of flexibility, you end up with these large quantities of banners for a specific design, but when they start to deteriorate by district, there's no swapping. You have no flexibility to swap. So what I'm proposing is some ideas that will help with that in the short term, and then allow you some time to decide fiscally what do you want to spend and how do you want to spend it. We did talk to some communities, 7 of them, to get an idea of what they do, just so that there's some background on what other communities are doing. Just some high points from those conversations that are in your packets. Brookfield has 108 banners we hang, compared to what everybody else is doing, around 30 to 40. That's a big number that you guys are hanging. The difference in most of the communities versus Brookfield is you have 3 very distinct districts, so there's an obvious reason for having so many, but you do have more than most communities have to deal with. All but Brookfield and LaGrange have some kind of policy or some kind of program that's more formalized that they can communicate. And 6 of the 7 communities have an opportunity for other taxing bodies or nonprofits to sponsor a limited number of banners in certain districts. Let me just, again, these are just kind of some examples of the light poles by district. Does anyone have any questions before I kind of go beyond the existing?
Just the numbers, I mean, just seeing that chart that we have so many more than other, I mean, and being aware of some of the other towns, it's just shocking that we have so many. Is that something we want to continue, or is that, I mean, I just, like Downers Grove, I know we have, 3 business districts, but Downers Grove has
1.
a lot of business districts and distinct business districts, and I guess, do they not have, I'm trying to picture, do they not have them on Ogden Avenue in Downers Grove?
No.
Okay.
Are there limitations in terms of the poles on Ogden?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Are there limitations for the poles on Ogden, do we have to have banners on Ogden? Or
No,
have
you
to
do
have-
not have to have banners on Ogden, no.
But is there any prohibition in Downers Grove? I know sometimes if it's the frontage or something, I mean, is Downers Grove does not have them on Ogden because they're not allowed because of the right-of-way, or is it just a choice not to put them on
It wa-
Ogden?
Back in my experience with Downers Grove, and this has been several years, it was a choice.
Okay.
I don't know if we're at discussion yet, but this has come up at Beautification Commission multiple times over multiple years about how this situation could be addressed, so thank you for bringing it forward. It's been discussed whether it needed to come out of beautification's budget or need to be proposed as an item, and so I know that they'll be excited, 2 of them are there, for me to report back about this, but I had a quick question about the existing, even in driving on Ogden today, it just seems like an excessive number of them. And so does it need to be on every pole, even if we chose to keep doing it? It doesn't, it feels like there's just so many of those hummingbirds staring at me. And that doesn't even scream Brookfield to me, to be honest. So I'd love to continue this conversation and figure out if beautification could help or be involved in the process.
So a couple thoughts, and 20 years goes fast. It was about 20 years ago when we came up with the banner program for what we call downtown Grand Boulevard. They are smaller banners on Grand Boulevard, but the whole scale is different on Grand Boulevard than Ogden or Broadway. Most of us were on the board when we had considerable discussion about Broadway and having, the post for 2 banners and having the flag, the the flag holder and the brackets for the flower pots, the hanging baskets and all that. What looks bad is if we have the holders out there, the brackets, and no banners. Or we're skipping them. If we're gonna skip them, then we shouldn't have the holders on them. So if Ogden, we're gonna do every other pole, then we shouldn't have the brackets on them, because it looks cheap, it looks like we don't care, it looks like we didn't have money for the banners that we kinda wanted to put up, but, it doesn't look right. Same thing where we have double banners, we should have 2 banners, or change how they are. I mean, Broadway does not look good. I mean, we have single banners on some of the poles have nothing on there. Those banners aren't that old either. But if we're going to do the banners, they should be torn up. I mean, they are gonna wear, we are gonna have to replace them over time. I think custom banners can look nicer too if it says something about Brookfield, not just the stock banner. I mean, I guess those can be all right, but when you have the custom ones mixed in, that really says something, if it pertains to the zoo or, community groups or whatever. Just a thought. So Ogden, there are a lot of birds looking at you, but then we need to get rid of some of the brackets, because it does not look good driving down there when you see missing banners.
We can do that. As a reminder, Ogden's a state road. We own the streetlights. IDOT does not. So anything we do out there is completely up to the village. If we wanted to remove brackets, there are streetlights, we can do that. If we wanted to add brackets, we can do that.
Well, I guess my point was, I kind of like the birds, but it's just that if we're going to have brackets, there should be banners. And if the board doesn't want to have banners on each pole, then get rid of the brackets, because it doesn't look right. Ogden is just a single pole too. When we look at Broadway, I don't know how that gets changed. Again, the past board had considerable discussion on having 2 banners and flagpole brackets and hanging baskets and all that. And we've had nothing out there really. So, again, that doesn't look right. If we're gonna have a banner and leave it up there all year, then that's fine. At least there's something up there. But not having it up there when you have the brackets and that for it.
And I agree with you completely, especially on Broadway. We made that investment, and we did spend a lot of time in the design of those poles and talked about that we wanted hanging baskets, banners on each side, and the flag holders. So, I guess I don't know, is there too many banners in general on Ogden, or is it just, there's just too many hummingbirds, or the design, or if they were alternating, or there was some plan? Because, once I don't know if there's a scheme or a plan to, when you put these up, if they're alternating banners, but I agree with Trustee Ketchmark that if, we're not going to use put a banner on each pole, we should take the brackets down, and then they're pretty much never going to go back up again. But maybe with the design, if we changed out the banners or some type of alternating banners or pattern of banners that might look different, is it just you're seeing too many hummingbirds in a row? Or?
Yeah, it's not even that. I just think that hummingbirds don't say anything about Brookfield to me. And so I think the Beautification Commission, if I could propose, would have some thoughts on if there were not the ones designed by the chamber or by another organization, have something to do more with Brookfield and its history and the natural areas that are here. And
so I think that answers, are there just too many banners in general in Ogden, or is it just the design of them? If we came up with a appropriate scheme or appropriate pattern of banners, is it okay to have that many banners up in general?
I think when you have a lot of, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't think we can answer that yet. I think we need to figure a few other things out too, and I have strong feelings about all this. So I'm right with the Beautification Commission here. I think we need to think in a little bit different terms, other than that we feel like we're limited to these vinyl banners, right? And there's a picture you have in your packet here, the Lincoln Square one. It's got a bicycle on one side and then a banner on the other. It's on page 7.
Right there.
If you've got it in there, but
Oh,
so
you're left, okay, sorry.
I believe
that's that one right in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just making me think that I'm all for the idea of swapping out the smaller ones, with different organizations and chamber, whatever, in the downtown areas. I do think Ogden Avenue, I know we're doing the Energize Ogden, there's a lot of plans for this, but I think that the part of the reality of Ogden Avenue is it's never not gonna be somewhat industrial looking. It's just it's a throughway, it's busy, we can't change that. We can fix it up and make it look nice and do better curbs and all those other things that we're talking about, but I think that we take advantage of what it is and almost highlight it a little bit. So for me, maybe instead of the colorful banners along there, what if it was, made out of metal and is more permanent? And it either, and these could be even in the downtown areas too, where one side is the metal and the other side is vinyl, but on Ogden, only metal. And where it highlights kind of what Katie was just getting at, which is different themes that represent Brookfield. So maybe one, because it has to be seen from both sides, so I wouldn't do lettering, because it has to be seen from both directions, it'd be kind of see-through, like a cutout. So like a bike, something, a waterway with a creek, music, because we have all these, our musical events and outdoor things at the parks, a train, a tree, something for the zoo, maybe it's a bungalow, right? But, so you could do all these different themes, and that doesn't all have to be on Ogden, don't get me wrong, but we could utilize those themes throughout the village, either just on one side of the smaller light poles and then do some of these colorful ones on the other side. But I just think on Ogden, this text, all of this, it gets lost. That's one of my biggest pet peeves about these. Those leaves, great, nice, bold, graphic design. The other ones, it's almost impossible to read. When you're driving, 20, 30 miles an hour, you're not, nobody's driving 20 on Ogden, but you're going 30 miles an hour in there. It's almost impossible to read. I just think they have to be big and bold and legible, and either it just says, and look at the towns around us that are really successful in these. It's just a simple message. It's either, it's not even always the name of the town, right? Shop local, or something very simple and straightforward that is going to be easy to see, it's gonna be memorable, and you don't need 100 of them.
If I could just make some perspective, staff comes to tonight, there is no right or wrong answer to
Yeah.
this. From my perspective, when I got to Brookfield, I had the same impressions that you had. God, it's a lot of the same banner over on every pole on Ogden. And I said, it really doesn't say anything about Brookfield, is my own personal
Right.
opinion. Trustee, when Trustee Ketchmark was the village president, we talked about banners, and I know you have a different opinion of that. I've been struck with, when I talk to staff, and I talked to Victor, is our forestry foreman in Public Works, he's kind of in charge of banners. And so a couple of years ago, I said to him, so what's the story with banners, and what's our goal in Brookfield with banners? And he's like, well, what do you mean? I mean, are we marketing the town? Is there part of our branding efforts? And he looked at me like, I don't know, I just do it, I think what the village has been doing is lurching from one year to the next, just doing either partially what we've done in the past, as Trustee Ketchmark said, without any thought. I don't know when the last time the village board has talked about this. Not in the years I've been here, have you done it? I've talked to individual
No,
members.
it's been less than that.
And so it goes back to my struggles and staff struggles with what is our brand? How are we marketing the village? And the board has seen us struggle with that, with different marketing companies and different PR firms. We haven't hit on it yet. And so I think that's part of the frustration that certainly I have in trying to figure out what we're doing with the banners, but I think it's also, you share the same struggles with it.
I think it's branding, definitely, that's a big part of it, then that we have struggled with that over the years, because it's just consistency. It's the same thing with like benches and garbage cans, and there being cement ones on Ogden and nice black wrought iron ones, in town. Like getting that consistency and branding is really important. But I think you've mentioned, Cindy, many different things here that I think we have to look at. What are the problems, or what are the challenges we're seeing? Labor, how much time is it taking to do it? What's the risk? You said it's dangerous for them to go up on Ogden to put those up. So you take that into consideration. So that's why I would say put something more permanent up. Take out that time for them to put it up every season or however many times a year. Take out the risk of having, the one-time installation done. Maybe there's a little maintenance over the years. And then visually, bold, easy to see, and then something consistent. I'm just throwing out some ideas of what they could be. I'm not set on those. I'm just saying, but if there was something that you could replicate, and maybe it's metal on Ogden, but the same imagery is carried through on canvas or vinyl banners in other areas of town. That continues your brand in other areas without it having to be identical. And it gives you flexibility to reuse it in different ways.
What we noticed in the research, like some of those neighborhoods in Chicago, what you could do is, like this is, I think one of these is Lakeview, this is Oak Park. You have like in the entrance to town, you put something like this and that announces, okay, now I'm in
Right.
Energize Ogden area, or now I'm in Broadway, Eight Corners. And then you could have banners after that.
Yeah.
And perhaps different type of banners, or like they do, this, oops, grabbed the wrong.
I was just gonna.
This is the, this stays and this changes. Same thing, I believe, here too. I don't remember
Yes.
which neighborhood this is, but that stays and that changes. And this permanent artwork isn't in Oak Park. It's not on every pole. It's generally, as you enter into a business district, it's there. It announces that you're in this area, and then you could have the banners that follow as part of the theme, part of a messaging that you're trying to get across, and it's,
Yeah, I like that too. And that one actually on the far right, it's hard to see from here, but if you look at, I don't know if you.
We have it in the
has on your
packet,
screen.
yeah.
One side, what we tend to do is have two that are like either flipped, either one. But why not have a more permanent one on one side? It doesn't have to be like built in, it can still be vinyl or whatever, that says Brookfield. And the other side could be a Chamber of Commerce one, could be a zoo one, could be a Little League one, could be whatever these community organizations are. So one of them stays consistent and the other one gets swapped out every quarter or whatever. I mean,
Well, you just teed it up, because that's the
Right,
proposal.
I was just going to
That's the
say, I think I
proposed
interrupted Cindy mid-presentation. I think there was a
We did,
pause
sir.
for
Well,
questions, but
it's
maybe
okay.
be productive, and it's my fault, I think I stopped with the question, but maybe let's let Cindy, because I think she framed at the very beginning, there'll be some questions for us to answer to give
Not too
direction. but-
excited, Cindy,
I
sorry.
know, we're not really
No,
passionate.
no, I think the discussion.
No, it's
I
great.
think the discussion is great, and I know Cindy agrees, but why don't we let Cindy finish presentation? But if there's questions, jump in, let's keep
Yeah.
jumping in, but maybe if Cindy finishes her presentation and then asks us the questions to give direction, we can kind of go from there.
So, thank you for teeing it up. What I'm suggesting is that we reduce the number of banners at this time, and really kind of keep it so that there's kind of a short term, a 1 to 3 year kind of plan that allows us time to identify the financials, resources needed to do something more permanent. And it gives you time to decide what you want it to look like. But right now, our biggest problem is you see the quality of most of the existing banners, and we have fall ones that don't even match. So they need to be taken out of the cycle. And what I'm suggesting is basically what was just suggested, is to create a welcome to Brookfield, a welcome to downtown Brookfield, welcome to Eight Corners. That stays on one side. And then on the other side, we're introducing something like Enjoy Brookfield, so we can promote our own community calendar. Music on Grand, concerts in the park, Parks and Rec. Give the village some opportunity to promote just on that other piece, while you're keeping a very classic welcome to Brookfield. It doesn't have to have a lot of imagery, just a nice, clean, classic illustration of the welcome to Brookfield, and then on the other side, it gives you some more marketing opportunities. And that's a short term. That way you don't have to keep buying, for instance, 47 banners all the same. You're only buying a smaller amount of banners for that one side, and they can stay up. It reduces the amount of transition that happens, so instead of changing out 2, you're only changing out 1. It gives us some flexibility that if you decided you wanted to do, open it up to other community organizations or taxing bodies, like the school, or the library, that gives them a place that they could do some limited banners and sponsor them themselves. So what I'm suggesting is, let's take out of stock what is no longer feasible to use the ones that are still in decent condition. So for instance, that chamber one is not in good shape, but there are some that are still okay. And we still have some other banners, and if you look in your packet, I did identify some of the ones that are still okay, that could be used in the cycle for each. Let me just scroll back here. So for instance, in the downtown area, the chamber ones are still pretty decent. If you wanted to still do a holiday one, those, or winter one, those, it says Explore Winter. It's not really about Brookfield, but if we needed to fill in to kind of limit the number of new banners we buy, that's a feasible banner we could still use and incorporate. One side would be Welcome to Downtown Brookfield, and the other side would be Explore Winter. So that's the concept that I'm suggesting as a part-time, as a short-term solution to the issue. It gets us to a point where we're buying a limited number of banners and utilizing the ones that are still okay to use, but, and reducing some staff commitment to these. Same thing for Ogden Avenue. Do a Welcome to Brookfield, just a nice classic banner that you can put up and leave up. And we can alternate it with Enjoy Brookfield, chamber banner, or Come Out and Play. We have those Come Out and Plays. We don't have one here tonight, but they're still in really pretty good shape.
Those are only like 4 years old.
Yeah, they're not very, exactly, 4 years old, and they look pretty decent. So you wouldn't have the same exact banner all the way down. We could alternate them. And the nice thing is that it doesn't require Public Works to have to decide which one goes up. If it's not in good shape, do we use it anyway? We've got some flexibility because there's some new banners to fill in with. And then the same with Eight Corners. We take out all the bad and kind of only use these new banners and add things like Concerts in the Park, Parks and Rec, Enjoy Brookfield. Trying to think what, I know Luke had some ideas that if things he would like to see that would give us an opportunity to be able to use those. Because we have doubles there and we also have singles. So one of the other, we kind of touched on the long-term plan, would be to consider something like these, which would use a similar concept. You're swapping in, leaving something permanently, and swapping in something more temporary. It gives you some flexibility if you want to do a community program, which allows organizations or other taxing bodies to basically absorb the cost of design and production. It would have a limited number of banners that could be installed both in the Eight Corners area and the downtown. I'm not suggesting doing it on Ogden because I think, first of all, it loses its impact, but they're also much bigger banners. And then it allows the village the opportunity to kind of swap them in and out as needed. So we have some flexibility maybe if that's a concept that you would like to consider. So we've talked about several of the things tonight, but these are the questions that we're kind of looking for some direction. Do you want to extend it to community organizations? That does increase a bit from the basic plan of reducing the number of exchanges, but we're also only limiting to a number of banners in each district that could be sponsored. So it's not opening it up to hundreds of them, we're opening it up to a handful of them.
And on that question, and again, sorry to jump in, but
No.
maybe if we go question by question about, in general, should we allow community organizations to design and pay for banners? And sorry, this is the lawyer in me and everything else. Do we have, and can we have editorial discretion over what goes up? And I know just in general, in the past, issues have come up about that if we, open up village communication opportunities to people that, can we regulate the message and things like this? Is there a mechanism or an example in place where we can have editorial control over what goes up? Because if we just open up to community organization, and I don't know if there's First Amendment or free speech issues that we don't like what your banner says, we're not going to put it up. Do we, maybe, question for Adam in general, or I'm sure there's other examples in other towns where this has been dealt with.
So I have examples from the 7 other communities that do
Okay.
open it up.
I
And
think the key is if you have a policy, as long as we follow the policy of what type of entities can advertise and what type of messaging, I believe that's, as long as you're consistently following that, I don't think you run.
It's definitely something else to be cognizant about when we're doing that, about usually when First Amendment issues go into place, it's about
Yeah, kind of.
regulating the time and place as opposed to subject matter, we'd have to look at what other communities do. There's banners. Other examples are communities that have those message boards. I've dealt with that some places of who could advertise, who could post messages on there. But it is something you have to consider when allowing outside entities to partake in this, about controlling the messages. I don't know.
It seems like
If you could
Cindy
just-
has some examples of
Okay.
other
I do.
towns, obviously, you
Yeah,
know.
and a couple of communities, clearly it was written by an attorney, and others are more of a procedure, an outline of kind of what they will approve or not approve, or what's acceptable. In most cases, it's non-political. It has to support the vision and the drive of the community. So it has to be community-based. It has to be based in, it can't be for an event outside of Brookfield. It can't, it can't promote something that's not legal. It's intended to just be for the benefit of the community and raise visibility. All of them require an application. All of them require pre-approval of the village, so a draft would have to be submitted to the village. And I personally do it for several nonprofit organizations in Hinsdale and Clarendon Hills. And it's a simple process, but you have to submit what you're actually going to print before you print it.
And I mean, I realize that's what we would want and should want, but I've always just been leery, and I think Adam knows what I'm talking about. If it's content-based, I mean, I'm sure there's a way to do it. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that we do it in a way where we get what we want, where we can control, have some editorial, process, because it's the polls and the message, and I'm aware of the cases where Adam's talked about with the electronic message boards. If you open it up to
Yeah.
community, you do have some troubles if you try to regulate the content of what's on there, if you disagree with the message. So I actually support the idea of community organizations. I saw, the idea of Cycle Brookfield and the intelligentsia race. I think those things would be great, but I just want to make sure our policy and our ordinance is rock solid, so.
President Garvey, I think we talked about this a little in the past when it came to the chamber banners. And maybe it was an unwritten policy, how we dealt with that. But for the groups like that, we can have some oversight on the design, but the banners are given to the village to do with as they want. So we can put them up all year, we can not put them up, but I think that was part of the discussion with the chamber, because those were some of the first, that's the first community group that came forward with banners. And I think they gave the banners to the village for us to use. And that was kind of our way of controlling it.
That we can choose not to put on. Again, sorry, the lawyer in
That's
me
a
just kicked in.
fail-safe, right?
Yeah.
That's just a fail-safe, but it sounds like you've got a lot of details on how it is controlled. and-
I do have examples of policies and procedures that have been provided by these three, I
Yeah.
could pull up a lot of additional ones, but
The other
definitely the
thing-
7.
I just want to make sure, I get a little irked when things are done like partway. Like, I think if we're going to do it, like, I would like to see a lot of them. Like, if rather than just see, oh, here's one over here, here's another one on that side of town, because I think you have a little stretch where they're either sponsored by a business and it's our design, and it just says sponsored by, whatever, whoever. That's another option. Otherwise, I just think it could make such an impact. We say, hey, meet me at the Mary's Morning Mix-Up banner, or whatever corner. Like, they could actually be like, go to little destinations that get, and are recognized throughout the community. But rather than just have like 3, I guess I'd like to see like a stretch of them. Maybe it's every other one or something. Or, Brookfield stuff, like you said, on one side, static Brookfield, and the
Well, I kind of sense that's why it was maybe broken down as a short-term plan and a longer-term plan, because, I mean, we're talking about a substantial financial investment, and, the way I think it's broken down, short-term plan to get us through the next 2 years while we continue the work and investigation. But, I mean, going back, maybe we should just, because Cindy, I think, is very helpful, broke down these questions. In general, should we allow community organizations to design and pay for banners to be installed by the village? Does anyone have a strong feeling either way on that?
I'm not sure I'm excited about having other community organizations design the banners. I like what I've seen in other towns, and I really appreciate what you've got in the packet with the policies from other towns, where I think you said St. Charles allows 25% of the space on a banner for a sponsorship logo, then it still can be consistent, can still be our banners, it still is marketing the town, which is what we want to be doing.
Right.
So I think it still needs to be a Brookfield design, unless it's
I
fully
agree with that.
approved.
I very much agree with that. I worry that this can turn into like a marketing campaign for somebody's business. And that bothers, I don't want like advertisements for everybody's
Yeah.
business going up and down the street. That's not what I want to happen. But if it's sponsored by one and they have like their little emblem at the bottom, that's different. But it's still designed by Brookfield or Beautification or whoever. But I get weary with that part. And then if you just let them design, do we run into the First Amendment problems? I always want to think about worst case scenario, and so I'd rather have it designed by the village or a village commission, and then if we can let them sponsor it and have something in the bottom of it, but not, so it's just an advertisement for somebody's business that can afford to put them up as opposed to somebody else's, and
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
I agree too. I think especially if it's double bannered, if one is consistent and the one next to it, someone else designed, that's not going to look very nice down the way. So I think some consistency on design, and then maybe even it's starting in a shorter term with, Parks and Rec and library and zoo and chamber and entities that we are part of, and then open it up later after we've tried it out.
It's a really visible way to market who we are and to be inclusive and connect people with things they might not be thinking about, and resources they're using in town, like you just mentioned, all these, organizations and commissions, and it's just like, what a great advertising tool. It's right out there where everybody's walking and driving and biking
And I think that kind of leads into the second question about, what they can be used for to support branding and marketing. But I mean, I think I'm trying to build like somewhat of a consensus or direction here about, Trustee Hendricks brought up the point of, maybe not opening it up to banners specifically to community organizations unless they're just sponsored part. Is that, and I thought I heard a couple
I
voices
agree
support
with
that.
Trustee.
I wonder if there's a halfway point there, though, because I think, I take your point and I take Ed's point. I think implementation and figuring out a fair use to partner with community organizations might be a difficult challenge. But I don't love the sponsored by idea. And I'm wondering if there's a way to introduce processes so that you're working with community groups throughout the process and introducing, I guess, hurdles, if you will, so that you get the commitment from that organization to work with whatever commission, beautification or whatever, to develop the banner and then have them be village developed. But, that way I think you get kind of these more institutional community groups like Cycle Brookfield or the library or the chamber. You get that buy-in and you won't be getting, just a random business necessarily.
And I think that's, I can't remember whoever said, I mean, basically, if we limit it to the banners to organizations that we have some specific relationship with, the library, we're obviously another government body, and the zoo, we could put up banners, I see the examples of the farmer's market, that's a function of, we as a village might want to advertise the farmer's market, which is actually a chamber event, but we're members of the chamber that promotes, brings people, so that's, the village could control the banners and want to put up a farmer's market banner, and if the chamber contributes towards that, the Intelligentsia Cup, it's, it's not a specific Village or Brookfield event. We gave the authority, it's our streets. If there's something the village wanted to invest in those, we're obviously very proud of our cycling, and, if we wanted to put up something, I mean, I think there's, the middle ground that you're talking about is that maybe we would pick the banners ourselves, and we would do it, it would tie in and, promote some of the organizations. The school one was interesting, the schools was listed as, or other Brookfield orgs and stuff like this. Is there a scenario where we'd want to do that? I guess, does that maybe make the issue a little bit easier if we don't specifically allow community organizations, or I don't think there's any thought to allow businesses to specifically put up a banner at this point in time, from what I'm hearing from the board, but if there's community organizations that the village is involved in or partner or member of, that we might choose to put up those banners ourselves and seek some contribution or input from them.
I'm open for that. I just, because the other case, you got to think worst case scenario. Are you ready for Ed Smoke and Vape Shop banner put up? And I'm not ready for that, but if we're going to have the Cycle Brookfield or something to that effect, Intelligentsia, I'm open to that.
But to-
I think you kind of keep it limited to some of our foundational events and features, right? Like you just mentioned, Farmers Market, Bike Brookfield, Music on Grand, like the things that are every year that are occurring that draw people in and that draw people out of their homes and draw people into Brookfield. That I would stick to those really big ones that are core to our community. And that could be a chamber event, it could be a library event, it could be a school thing, but
I would agree with that, though. In the past, we have had where businesses could sponsor a banner. So it's not like they would design their own banner, each business. There would be the banner the village would design, and, you put it out there for $100, whatever it would be, that, this business can, have their name out. This business, you see that in towns all over the place, where all the businesses are contributing to it that way. So that's-
Brookfield's done that? Like where?
We've done that before, yeah.
Where was it?
In fact, the Centennial banner, when we did the Centennial, there's still one of those floating around here somewhere. Each business would, they didn't have to, but many of them bought the business. That's how we paid for the banners.
And it just said on the bottom,
Right.
sponsored by.
Right, it was just the name of the business. So it was our banner. And you see that in towns all over, where the particular business, for that group, the banners are the same, but each business would get their
But it's
name.
small on the bottom. It's
Right,
not like the whole
right.
banner is an
That's what I'm saying. So
advertisement.
there is that kind of business buy-in too, not where they're designing their own banner to it. I don't think we should have anything like that.
are we still talking short-term?
Yeah,
Near
that
term?
I am
Okay.
right now,
Okay.
just
Make
because I
sure
think
we're
this
all
gives
out.
us an opportunity to kind of test the waters, see what works, see where interest is.
Yeah.
Because I think too, especially if an organization were to be responsible for paying for their banners, that's a financial commitment for them. So I think this gives you a short term, gives you a chance to test some things, figure out who manages it, because I think that's also another piece when you start opening it up to businesses to sponsor a banner or a series of banners, whatever, that requires somebody to go out and do that. So, where's the
Staff, yeah.
the staff for that, or is that, a commission, or is, how?
So in your
I'm suggesting a
short-term,
way to just kind of dip your toe in it, and let's figure out what works and what fits right for Brookfield, and then build from there.
so in your short-term plan or proposal, would sponsorship banners be allowed or test? Are you saying, let's do the short-term with what kind of was laid out in the various groups, and then in the course of the 2 years that we're working through the short-term, then we work the other way, or?
Yeah, so initially what I said was just to kind of strip it down and get us to a place where we used either some limited number of banners and that we already have in stock, and then create a limited number of banners, new banners, just to kind of get our feet wet. I don't want to discourage sponsorship if that's of interest. It just would mean, like, for instance, if the chamber is up all year, if we did, let's say, the farmer's market, we would just swap that out, and that becomes the chamber's banner for the summer. So there's flexibility in there for sponsorship, but just be a little more creative about how it gets done. And it's not, for a short period of time, it's for a little longer period of time. Obviously, things like the like a special concert or music in the park or something, where there's a limited time for it to be up, we would have to make a separate consideration for it. But I think it's worth considering, but knowing it's going to have a limited number of available spaces to use, and what gets dropped off to do that.
I think you have to keep in mind, if you're leaving the banner out there longer, you look at our banners out here, and we've been changing them out. So if you leave something out there for 6 months a year, it's gonna get a lot more wear than if we're having it out there for 1 or 2 months. You know, especially on Ogden, you know, the bigger banners out there, you know, the winter weather, and, I mean, it seems like it destroys those.
That's why I'm suggesting a short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, the Ogden Avenue plan is, you know, four designs, well, is it proposed as 4 designs, 2 changes?
Yeah, so, and what this doesn't, so Energize Ogden is going to kind of raise its visibility in the next 2 years, probably, right? Yeah, fingers crossed. So obviously, we would be looking at some longer-term banners anyway. That's a great time to look for financing for something more permanent. You know, I know we're going to want to do something that says Energize Ogden and draw some attention to what the commitment and the resources that are being put to that program. So, again, this was just intended to get us through that short period of time.
But when I look at the Ogden Avenue, the
Yeah.
past effort and the proposed, you talk about 4 designs, 2 changes, so that
Yeah.
is 6 months of a particular
Yes.
banner. I mean, do we have banners that will last 6 months of, or, I mean? do you-
Well, so the ones that are still in good shape we could still use them for 6 months,
Okay.
But you don't have enough
which is why we would do some new ones
of the same kind.
of Welcome Brookfield and Enjoy Brookfield.
Would those then
No,
be?
those were my suggestions. They could be, there could be other ones. We could do something along the same lines as Music in the Park or something that's more branded for the village. I'm just throwing out limited changes here on Ogden
So they
Avenue.
would complement the ones that we currently have in stock. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to use the ones that are in stock that are still in decent condition.
Would the
So,
idea be
I-
then to use them in the, you know, would you be able to use them then after we come up with the plan, a more permanent, long-term plan?
Come Out and Play those are still in really good shape. The chamber ones are starting to fade. So those will probably have a couple years in them, and that's about it.
I guess I meant the new ones that
Oh.
you would develop.
Again, it depends on what you invest in and how much you spend on them, you know?
Well, here, is everyone in favor of, okay, looking at this in 2 different ways, a short-term and a long-term plan? So something, you know, to stock the existing poles for the next 2 years in the various districts. Does everyone agree with that scheme of giving us 2 years where during that 2 years, we have basically all the poles covered with banners and swap them out as needed, while during that 2 years, we work on the longer term after that? Is there anyone against that?
Can we cut down on the
Yeah.
banners?
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
we don't have to make as many.
Every pole on Ogden. But, yeah.
I understand what trustee Ketchmark's saying, though, about it looking bad if you don't do it. So
Yeah.
if it means taking down the actual pieces that hold them or making it a different one every other one, so it's less repetitive. I'm
I think the alternating could look great with it. But I think one of the, if not the key question, is in a super short term, this year, next year, I mean, this year preferably, how do we get banners up on Broadway? We designed the poles, we designed all that, we've never had the banners up there since we've got the new poles on. How do we do that? Who's designing that? What is the process for this? How do we take care of Ogden Avenue? I mean, we have a hodgepodge of banners that we can't cover any district in right now with enough banners to fully stock those poles. So in the super short term, how do we move beyond this? Because in many respects, this is the same conversation I had from when I was village president, and we tried to figure out what to do, and we'd end up with a banner somewhere that would take the place of something that was going, and we never were able to move beyond that. That's the same place we're
We
at
had
right
that same
now.
conversation, that's where we came up with the Come Out and Play. That's
Right.
exactly where that came
That
from.
was to fill a void
Yeah.
because we didn't have some banners, so we came up with that. So yes, we absolutely need to talk long-term with it. But that's what we've been talking about for years and years. So in the super short term, this year, how do we do this? I mean, are you designing them, or are we hiring someone to design them? Do we pick out a stock banner to put up? Because I don't think we have enough with our hodgepodge ones to do it.
Well, and the Broadway ones are unique because they're
We
the
don't,
middle
but
one.
we don't have enough for
But I
Broadway.
mean, this,
We would
the
need new.
holders are unique in that you can't just swap out the ones we
Right.
have for Ogden or downtown. So yeah, I mean, we have to order a new, maybe it's not the most expensive set, but something that's gonna last a couple of years to go there for whatever funds we do have available.
Well, here, let's try and work through this section, because we got to come to some kind of consent. Let's go back to Ogden Avenue for a second, because I've heard a couple different things about whether we have less banners or not banners. I'm not saying that we should have the same banners on every pole down Ogden. I think there's a consensus that if we're going to use every pole, they should be some type of alternating banner, so you don't see hummingbirds on every banner. Can we do that? Do we have enough banners to do that?
No, we
No.
need to create a new Welcome to Brookfield banner, which was the kind of the classic Welcome to Brookfield, something simple. And then I'm suggesting an Enjoy Brookfield, but that we could also do something to do with Parks and Rec or one of our events. There's enough chamber to alternate, so these would all be alternating. So you could alternate these in and out. It would not be just a row of Welcome to Brookfield.
Okay,
Can
so.
we Energize Ogden.
As soon as we get a little closer, it was on the list, and we kind of took it off temporarily just because we're not quite there yet.
But in general, I'm asking for an extra word. If we're giving the direction on Ogden Avenue, is we want banners on Ogden Avenue on every pole in some alternating design. We clearly don't want the same banner on every pole, but starting this year in the short term, we want banners on every pole in Ogden Avenue. Is that the direction from the board?
Yes.
Not from me.
Okay. You want less banners?
I think 108 banners in town is too many.
Okay, but specifically on Ogden Avenue,
Yes, even on Ogden Avenue.
okay. So how many banners would you prefer on Ogden Avenue?
I 100% agree that going 35 miles per hour or whatever everybody drives down Ogden doesn't allow you to see a whole lot of banners. So having anything up there to me, to me, this can very, very easily become visual litter.
So we have 45 poles now in Ogden.
At least take out half, in my opinion.
What if it's like on every block? You know, I don't know how many, I'm not sure the layout right now, but if it was just on every block as you go down, I don't know if that is still kind of a lot, but there that goes back to the question of, then you have the
Yes,
the
you'd have
poles
to take
still
the
just
brackets out.
out there.
Okay, how does?
That's my
And we appreciate, the opinion, I understand it, and I think what I heard was a little bit the design of not having the banners be so wordy as more as just short, something specific to
Classic.
Brookfield, that type of thing might be different, but, so trustee Hendricks is, wants to, just let's say, reduce it by half. I mean, is that the consensus, or do we want to, for the short, again, this is just the short term, because I think once we go up and we take those banners, those brackets off the banners on Ogden Avenue on every other pole, we're never going to put them back up again. So is there thought that we try the alternating banners on every pole for now for the next 2 years as we work through it, or do we go with taking banners off half of them, or the brackets off half of them?
I support Jennifer's idea. I think it's a good idea and would reduce labor and all that stuff. But I also, it's pretty low and I could be convinced otherwise.
Well, no, that's what I'm trying to.
I mean, I'd rather invest in the other business districts when we know we're gonna redo Ogden in a couple of years. And so if I was gonna buy a bunch of new banners, I would prefer to put those in on Grand and Eight Corners and figure out how many we could get that we have already alternating or whatever, every other pole on Ogden for now.
That's where I was going. Fiscally, I would rather invest the money in the other, as trustee Ketchmark said, Broadway, we should have banners up there. There are new poles, everything's up there. We should have banners up there. Invest the money, get new banners there. As far as Ogden is concerned, I said at one of the meetings before, you got to tell me what beauty is, because I'm not, if it's functional, it works for me. So if it fiscally responsible that every other banner, then do every other banner if that's what we can do. Just as trustee Ketchmark said, take down the other poles, so it doesn't look like we're doing it in a lazy fashion, at least do it like we care. To touch base on an earlier one, we do have different sizes per different business district, because when those poles were designed, it was to take that size of that business district into consideration. And one last item, I know there was a statement said, well, those fall ones don't even match. I like the fall ones. I think they look great when they're up there, so.
Okay, but I'm trying to go back to Ogden, because I'm hearing different things. I
Right,
mean,
no, I'm agreeing if you take down every other one, because it's from a fiscal point of view, why buy that many banners if we're gonna redo the whole thing in a couple years? So just take down every other one and then put the best ones up you can.
But trustee Kaluzny, is that what you suggest, when you said alternating banners, did you mean different banner on every other pole, or taking down half the brackets?
Either way. I don't know what is more financially responsible to do. I don't know how many not crummy banners we have left. And so I would put it back to staff to say what makes the most sense there. What I'm suggesting is that we spend more of our dollars, if we're doing it this year, on the other two business districts.
And I think staff's clearly getting that direction, but I think what you said and what trustee Cote are two different things. You're talking about alternating banners, and he's saying put a banner up on every other pole, like trustee Hendricks. If there is
Can you
banners.
do both?
Isn't that the same?
They're alternating and every other pole? We don't have enough for the same one on every pole, I don't think,
No,
right?
You'd have to buy new.
yeah.
to
But
alter.
we'd have to, there would be some new that would have to be purchased. If we're talking Ogden, the Come Out and Play are the only ones that we have probably enough of.
But knowing that we might have to buy more, I guess I'm trying to figure out, if we're trying to do short-term but also look long-term, in the future, is there ever going to be a time where we're going to want banners on every pole on Ogden if they're alternating messages? Are we ever going to want that? Because what I'm trying to prevent is going through the labor of taking the brackets down, and then 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, we want brackets on every pole and putting the brackets back up.
But
I
but
think
isn't
it's-
Energize Ogden gonna change out those light
Yeah,
poles?
That's
I think
what
it's
I'm-
premature to try to
Yeah.
make those decisions right now.
I assumed the light poles would be switched.
Same.
Right. I think there's so much that's going to change there, and what if we do decide to go more permanent? Then those brackets are coming down anyway, we put more permanent in there, it might not be every pole even.
And with the Ogden plan, there'll probably be streetlights on both sides of the street, and so they will not be all on. They won't be as often as they are now, and they'll be alternating on each side of the street.
But I guess, I mean, everyone else understands, and I don't, are we taking the brackets off every other pole right now?
How much work is that? We don't have any concept of what that
I don't think it's very
takes.
much.
No, I know, and that some of them I know, Victor said, some of the equipment is, they're kind of holding it together, so there might be some natural ones that could come down easily. I kind of
I
speaking
think-
out of school, but
I think they're just screws with brackets.
Okay,
I think
because
they
we're
could
trying to
be-
make a decision without really understanding what, if that's really a big deal
yeah, I
or
don't think
not.
that's a
And
big,
If
I
it
would
isn't,
not,
I'd
that would,
say,
should not be a part of your decision.
I think, Cindy, I think it was your second question?
Yes.
You had up there, which we really haven't talked about much. Maybe that should be the basic discussion. We don't have to have banners. We could save money, we could save time. We don't need them anywhere. I thought the point of this was to support the branding, marketing, economic development of Brookfield. They should say something about Brookfield. When people drive down Ogden, having the banners should give some character to our town, and people know they're here, and it's something different. I think we've had some bad designs in the past. That doesn't mean there aren't good designs out there. But we don't have to have banners anywhere. But it just seemed like it was something that helps sell our town, whether it's showing we care, showing we're different. One of the banners we did originally was one done by a local artist. That was a custom logo that had established 1893. And the point was, we've been here for a while. This is kind of a cool town. You know, we don't have anything really like that now, but we can do a lot with the banners. But, I mean, we don't have to have banners anywhere.
No, but we want banners. We were just have that meeting where we were discussing what we
But you
wanted.
see what I'm saying? If we're looking to take down the I don't think it's that we have too many banners on Ogden. I think we just have had the wrong banners, and we've had ripped up banners and broken brackets. And it doesn't look good.
Right.
Well, if we're talking about not having money to spend on them, and I don't know how many, we'd also need to know how many we have that we could put in circulation. If alternating allows us to not have to purchase any new ones, then let's alternate and take down the other brackets. If we can invest in just refilling them, then I say we fill them all, alternate, and.
I guess that's where I'm getting
Depends on the
confused with the
cost.
alternate. I think some people are using the term alternating, mean putting a banner on every other pole and taking down the, the one in between. And I think other people are saying alternating, meaning not have the same banner on two poles in a row.
I'm just saying, we don't know the costs right now about it. We don't know what the inventory is, so it's hard for us to.
So in your
decide.
packet, there is,
I saw the price, like 52, whatever.
yeah, and that's for the small ones.
For the small ones.
Yeah.
But for Ogden, those are
They're
the
gonna
big
be
ones.
at least 100, and
Right, but like, how many would we need? Like, I don't know. Are we talking 6? Are we talking 20? Like, what do
You
we,
just, how many poles do we have on Ogden?
There's 47 poles, if you do half, we need to buy.
I don't know what condition they're in.
so I suggested in your
I see.
packets,
Yeah, okay.
it does have an age and a condition and a suggested number.
Right, okay.
I'm not saying that's the,
So that would be like 15 new, 50,
yeah,
okay.
probably 30 new.
Okay, got it.
$3,000.
Okay, so we're not talking a huge amount.
Yeah.
But in your packet, it does outline some suggestions.
If the consensus of the board, which it sounds like it is on Ogden, is to, I think there's consensus that we have too many right now, and we don't like the fact that they're on every single pole. So if the consensus of the board to staff is let's reduce them, and reducing may mean alternate poles or some other combination, we can come back to you with specific, we'll bring Victor. Carl won't be here anymore, but Victor, we could bring Victor, he's an expert on all these things. We could tell you what it would cost, inventory of the banners, how many we have to replace, how much, give you hard dollars about what exactly we'd be talking about short term, and then we could have further conversations about long-term options if we're gonna do things like we've talked about, like in Chicago, where you've got a permanent thing on one side that never changes, and you fill it in with other items as well.
So just, so you know, this does reflect his comments,
Who's he?
Victor's. So the inventory is based on Victor's information,
Okay.
just to be clarified.
If we skipped every other poll, or if we went with every poll, we're gonna know within a week if we made the right decision. Yeah, we're gonna hear about it within a week. Honestly, President Garvey, I'm open to both of them, as long as we have good-looking banners to put up there. If we don't have good-looking banners to put up there, then I'm in favor of reducing it. But if we have good-looking banners to put up there, I'm fine with putting them up there.
And by good looking, you mean legible,
Yeah, not,
having the
Like,
right
they
information?
ran through the wash 30 million times.
Right.
So maybe, does this require, additional meeting or additional committee session? I mean, can we come back and say, because right now, because I tried to break it down this way, let's talk about Ogden Avenue. Can staff come back and say, this is what we could do this year on Ogden Avenue for this price? If we wanted to put a presentable banner on each pole and swap it out twice, this is what it would cost us to do, and we wouldn't have to take any down. They would not be 20 hummingbirds in a row. We could do this for this price, or we could then choose to say, look, no, let's take down every other bracket and just put up half the banners. Can we come back with that?
Yes.
Okay, so that takes care of Ogden, I think, in terms of the next step. Downtown, I mean, I think trustee Ketchmark's point, and I fully support it, is that we have to have banners on both sides of every pole throughout the business district. I mean, is that something we can do now or with some investment that's within the budget?
So originally, what I was proposing was it would be brought to you for your planning this fall for the 2024 budget.
So this year we would just continue doing it?
Yeah, so this year we would need to continue, because I don't know that there's a budget. I guess we could look at it the same way, if there's a budget to do some temporary ones, like the Welcome to Downtown, Enjoy Brookfield, something for Parks and Rec, or Farmers Market. I think there's some possibilities to do some quick ones, but we'd have to look at the budget to do that.
I don't want to speak for the Beautification Commission, but I think we have some budget for that.
Okay, so then, if we know what the budget is, we can back into what we can buy. And the nice thing is, those are the less expensive because they're smaller banners.
The front loader we just bought came in under budget, too.
But are we talking about so are we trying to stock 8 corners?
Well,
mean-
I was talking downtown. but-
Yeah, okay, and I said downtown, right. But trustee Ketchmark, you were specifically talking about 8 corners?
Yes, because, I mean, since we've redone that a few years ago, we have never had so many poles and brackets. And, I mean, we had a handful of banners up there prior to redoing Broadway. But as the board discussed, putting up brackets and hanging basket hangers and all that, we have hangers, we have no, banners or flags, or, I think we have baskets we put up on some of them. But so that would basically be a new program. I mean, we have some banners up there right now, we don't have enough to nearly cover all of them.
But for this summer, this fiscal, I mean, what's the solution for this year, fiscal year? I mean, what do we need to get, let's say Broadway, I jumped from downtown to Broadway. What do
Sure.
we need on
So
Broadway?
If in the short term, you get a stock banner, a patriotic banner, if we double up our Explore Brookfield banners, or, print more of them up, we have that design. I mean, maybe that's something we can do. That's what's up there right now, but it's not enough. I mean, we're on one side of the pole and on some poles. So if we did more of those, we could put that up. If you do a patriotic, a red, white, and blue, then, that can be up several times a year. If you do a stock one, I mean, if we work with a designer on it, it probably wouldn't take much more time other than our time discussing which design we like more than the others. But, I mean, a designer can probably put that together, fairly quick for us. It's just if we can decide on it. But we're starting from scratch, really, on Broadway.
You do have some signs currently. There is a chamber one, and there is Come Out and Play that are.
But we've
in-
never had this many polls, so we don't have enough to cover that.
But I think what Cindy's saying is we have a combination of between Come Out and Play and the chamber ones for this year, piecing together
Yeah.
the polls to have
Yes.
something on every poll in some
Yes.
type of sensible pattern. If we have to add some, if we don't have enough between the Come Out and Play and the chamber ones, if we need to get some, because I agree with you, I don't know if I want to let another summer pass by where we don't have banners on every poll, so I'm just trying to come up with a way to, looking at the inventory that we have, what can we plan for I mean, we're at the end of May right now, what can we get for the covered, both poles all the way up and down Broadway? Do we need to?
So we have 16 in good, the
Come Out
Play
and Play.
Brookfield, Come Out and Play. There are chamber ones. I was recommending at least doing some 8 corners, Welcome to 8 Corners. It would be a limited number that you would need to buy, but that way you at least have some kind of designation for the downtown. You can leave it up so that it's not another switch out, but you could easily add on the other side, the Giraffe and Come Out and Play. Both of those, we could have enough. We would just have to buy a limited number for the
Discovery.
Discover 8 Corners.
Okay, and is that something we can accomplish in the coming weeks or months, get something up this
Sure.
summer?
As long as we're doing a nice, simple, classic Discover 8 Corners, sure. And we have a brand for Enjoy Brookfield, so that would be an easy one as well.
So again, just focusing on Broadway, is that direction we can give staff that we want to get banners up on both poles between the combination of Come Out and Play, the chamber, and whether it's Discovery Corners, Enjoy Brookfield, have those covered for this summer and fall, something that we can kind of get through the rest of the year on? Is that,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's, we know, so that's the direction on Broadway. We talked earlier about the direction on Ogden to come, come back with the, and then, so going back to the downtown, what's the thought there in terms of getting us through? When you were talking short-term, you said 23 and 24. I guess what the board is saying or hearing is we want to get something this year and into next year. So what's the recommendation or what's the board direction on downtown?
So if you look at the plan, you have enough to do chamber, explore winter, come out and play. Holiday. So that we would need to do something new, limited number of welcome to downtown or enjoy Brookfield. But we could, a combination of those things could work out a plan to make that work.
And with what we need to purchase, I mean, we,
I would have to put it together, but yeah,
Sure.
we could figure that out.
okay. Well, is that, again, this is real short-term this year, getting stuff up this year into, and then, hopefully someone can be used next year, and then the long-term plan of building the long-term plan, we'll spend the next year and a half doing, or at least the next 6, 8 months doing so. So I guess, is that enough direction now for tonight for you to come back? And, I mean, I don't know how soon you can come back with the answers to these questions, and then we give the go to, this is how we're going to stock each of the districts for the short term. And then in terms of what's the long-term plan about how we do this? I've heard talks about, the Beautification Commission wanting to be involved and having a budget. I mean, where do we go with that? Or is the design, is that something that, we look for recommendation from them, but is it something staff wants to make a recommendation, bring it back to the village board? What's staff's recommendation there? Not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot.
We could do either.
I was gonna say,
You want to defer the future design long-term to the Beautification Commission or to any other commission, park board? We can do that. If you want staff to work with a local designer, we can do that. I introduced at the beginning, I would love if we, once we develop some kind of marketing, branding campaign or something for the village in general, we tie the banner, all banners designs into that, but that's a long ways off.
and there's financial resources that come up through grants and other programs we can look at, especially, I'll use Ogden as an example, not only through Energize Ogden, but also it's coming up on an anniversary, and there'll be state funds that'll be available for ways to promote Ogden Avenue. And so that might be a great way to introduce a more permanent sign as well. So there's funding options that are coming up. We have to look for them, but they're not going to happen right away.
Well, maybe let me ask the board, because, I mean, obviously, this has generated a lot of discussion from the board, and I think there's very strong opinions and ideas from the board. Is this something that we want to keep ourselves, or do you want to put it out to beautification, see what they have, and, come back, and, obviously, we can review their recommendation, change their recommendation, reject their recommendation, or is this something that you guys want us to handle ourselves?
I prefer beautification myself, and then it can come back.
I think it's probably beyond beautification, though, if we're looking at it in terms of a, marketing plan and how it ties in with economic development. That's not just beautification. I think certainly beautification can have input on some of these, but if we're trying to put together an overall marketing plan.
Well, so maybe beautification with the staff memo, staff recommendation, staff direction a little bit, board and trustee Guhuli's point about maybe the materials and Ogden being different. I mean, maybe some, so what I'm reluctant to do is just throw it out to the beautifications, just give us your ideas, what you think for banners, when we already have some pretty strong opinions about design, material, direction, how we want it to fit into marketing. I don't want to waste their time. So is it something we can send to beautification through our liaison with more guided direction of this is what we're looking for?
It could just be one conversation at the next Beautification Commission meeting to get input. I don't think it needs to be assigned to them permanently.
Okay.
There you go.
Well,
I mean, it depends on what you want to do, but I think that I can see some nodding heads of opinions behind me or in front of me. that I think it's worth a conversation, because it's been discussed multiple times. I think it'd be nice to have some,
So what I think I'm hearing, let me just sum it up. What I think I'm hearing is that you'd like to see kind of what could get us through the rest of the year. Is that what you would like to go through, beautification? So if I came up with some ideas and a plan and a budget,
Well, maybe then I misunderstood, because I thought that,
I'm sorry.
the short term, I thought the board has kind of said this is what we could do short term. I was thinking more long term, are we going to want a recommendation?
Yeah, I gather a short-term status quo, for this year, let's come back, we'll come back to you, let you know next meeting what we can do to continue with the current banner kind of designs and so forth, but fill in the areas on 8 corners in downtown where we need them. And then maybe potentially refer to Beautification Commission, the long-term concepts for.
That's what I thought, that's how I was trying to frame the issue, but it
sorry.
wasn't clear. So is that, Trustee Calusi, did you feel the same way, that it would be just one meeting of the Beautification Commission about direction for long-term plans for banners with some direction, or?
I think so, and I'm also just throwing out, if there's a budget concern, there's also could be a vote at one of their upcoming meetings to contribute towards this in the short term also,
Okay.
if that's something that we needed to do, if it wasn't in a particular group's budget at the moment.
I'm in support of this too. I mean, if there's a group that already is thinking about this and they're passionate about it and they have some ideas, I'm more than open to those. I think that would be fantastic to hear, because they're already putting thoughts together and.
For the short term or the long term, though? Do we need further direction to do?
Start with the short term, and I'd like to,
Okay, so
I'm open to both, but.
when is the next Beautification Commission meeting? You
June
said
13th.
June 13th, so that's after our next committee of the whole meeting is June 12th. So if we didn't get a recommendation till after their June 13th meeting, that would be the end of June, the June 26th meeting. And then, then if we're ordering banners and stuff, then we're into July and August. I was envisioning, hopefully, the short term, that staff could come back possibly in 2 weeks with a budget to kind of fulfill the general direction that we talked about of getting something up for this year with the parameters we talked about, or see how we do it on Ogden, get Broadway filled in, and see what we can do on,
I think that that's fine, and if it's a budget item on the 12th that needs further commitment, then their meeting's on the 13th.
okay. But then after that, if we get through the plan for this year, I mean, I think I'd like to, and I think I agree with most of you, have the beautification give some input on the long-term plan with the parameters and direction. You could obviously, there's people here that could, go back to them and say, look, this is general the conversation the board's had. We would love to get some of your input on it. Everything from, how it's used for marketing to long-term to materials and, swap outs and stuff like this, and get there.
If we are approaching this as a marketing issue, I mean, 2 of these are TIF districts, so Ogden and Broadway, and I believe we did talk about the banners being funded through TIF Buddy before. We're not talking a lot of money.
Right, yeah, I don't want to see any of you, don't worry about money, this isn't really a money, there's always a money issue, but I agree with you completely that we can find the money for what we want to do.
But I kind of understood that and figured that with, we're not talking a huge cost, but I guess because we're May 23rd or May 22nd right now, if we committee this a few more times and come back, and we're not making decisions through June or July, we're not going to get banners up. I mean, I think there's the direction that, we would like to get banners up in the East Broadway and get sort of this sorted out in the coming weeks and month, that type of thing, if we can turn it around that fast. And then the long term, we have bigger decisions to make, and I think there was some excellent discussion tonight in terms of materials and long term, what we want to do. I think the short term is the very short term, and I think that's what we should focus on, is getting something done in the short term. Knowing there's money, I guess we just need to hear what decisions do we need to make from this board, maybe at the next meeting, or the direction we can give at the June 12th meeting to say after June 12th, okay, we can go get banners up in downtown Ogden and Broadway this summer, basically. And then from there, we could decide on the long-term. Trustee Kaluzny can meet with the beautification meet on the 13th, and then we can talk it a bit again on the June 26th meeting, what we do in terms of the long term, so we keep it moving. Is that
Yep.
fair?
Yes. Yes, it
Yes.
is.
Okay. All right, anything else that you need from us in terms of?
No, I think.
Thank you for bringing it forward and in laying it out this way. I mean, I think it's very helpful to look at the short term and long term, and I could tell how much work went into the inventory, and obviously the visual presentation is very helpful. I think we all know we want something different, and, I think this is going to help us move forward, so.
Thank you, Vanna.
Okay, that ends the items we have up for discussion, our regular business. Any public comment on my right? Any public comment on my left? Yes, Steve?